Welcome back to Primetime News. A day after a Canadian plane full of passengers was taken over by an armed man at Sancta International Airport, Montego Bay, questions about how the incident was allowed to happen and the implications for Jamaica.
Tonight we have exclusive pictures of the final moments of the crisis, and while the security forces are being lauded for the non-violent ending, there are concerns about security at the airport.
Milton Walker's important questions and some answers in this TVJ News Report.
This is the moment at 6:40 when the JDF Counterterrorism Operations Group C.O.D. stormed the aircraft. After hours of painstaking negotiations overnight, the decision was taken to launch a tactical assault. Even while negotiations were underway, C.O.D. was busy planning an offensive. The commander unit got valuable information from passengers who were released early in the night. Sources told TVJ News that C.O.D. also carefully studied the layout plans for the Canjet Boeing 737 aircraft. Significant attention had been focused on the jet bridge entrance at the front of the aircraft. However, the element of surprise was key, and the C.O.D. team decided to use the cockpit window to get inside the aircraft. Look carefully at this image, which we have enhanced. You can clearly see members of C.O.D. talking to the pilot in the cockpit. Sources told TVJ News that the pilot was the only person in the cockpit when members of C.O.D. moved in. The JDF unit grabbed the pilot through the window and entered the cockpit. All this without the knowledge of Frey, who was somewhere in the main cabin. The commanders were able to lure Frey into the cockpit, which he still believed contained members of the flight crew. Security officials say the hijacker thought members of the crew were in the cockpit because he continued to bang on the door, demanding that it be opened so the aircraft could take off. Meanwhile, questions continue to be raised about how Stephen Frey managed to board a plane with a firearm without being stopped. Canjet pilot Tracy Hindman, who has flown many times into Sancta, also posed the same question. "It's absolutely shocking that somebody would have made it through security with a weapon," she declared. So what happened to the security apparatus at the nation's busiest airport? All accounts suggest that Stephen Frey brandished a gun and forced his way past several checkpoints. At least 2 people chased him but failed to stop him reaching the jet bridge and boarding the Canjet Airlines Flight 918. We were told after he entered the check-in area, he went through the staff entrance using the ID of a relative who works at Sancta's. We captured these images of the main security checkpoint deep inside the terminal. In this shot, you see a security official running the metal detector on a fellow member of the security staff. So the conclusion must be drawn that staff are also subject to search. Arising out of the incident, some critical questions are exercising the team of investigators probing the incident. Why was there no security official in that section of the airport armed? After he barged past the first checkpoint, why was there no red alert to warn all aircraft to close their doors, thus preventing a hijacker entering an airplane still at the gate? Does Sancta or Norman Manley have a quick response team ready to respond to a similar situation? Sources told TVJ News that a police officer was seen chasing him, but the gunman was still able to board the aircraft. Finally, what would happen if it were 3 or more hijackers with assault weapons and perhaps bombs? Milton Walker, TVJ News.
And the police continue to question the 21-year-old man responsible for the crisis. The specific charges Frey will be facing have not yet been announced. However, it appears from an examination of the laws that he may not face hijacking charges. Nadine McLeod explains.
Since Jamaica has never had an incident of this nature, it was not immediately clear what specific charges Stephen Frey would face. Our first stop, the police. But they still refuse to speak publicly about the event, except to say they're investigating. A police source told our news team that officers spent today questioning Stephen Frey and that the cops have been in consultation with the Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn. Ms. Llewellyn revealed that she has been in discussions with the police about the case, but she wouldn't comment on the specifics, adding that it wouldn't be appropriate at this time. She also cautioned the public against any rush to judgment until the police have completed their investigations. When asked what legislation addressed a situation of this nature, she pointed to possible breaches of the Firearms Act, the Civil Aviation Act, and the Aircraft Tokyo, Hague, and Montreal Conventions Act. But she cautioned that the applicability of these statutes will always depend on what the police unearth in their investigation. The media and just about everyone else have been referring to the incident as a hijacking, but the Aircraft Conventions Act actually suggests that Stephen Frey may not be charged for hijacking after all. The Act states that any person who been on board an aircraft in flight unlawfully by use of force or threats of any kind, seizes the aircraft or exercises control over it, shall be guilty of the felony of hijacking. It further states that the guilty person shall be liable to be imprisoned for life with or without hard labor. But the Canjet aircraft which Stephen Frey boarded on Sunday night was not in flight when he took control of it, robbed and threatened passengers. If the police were to go by this act, Stephen Frey may not be charged for hijacking. But there are several other charges which could be pressed. Lawyers say among them are possible charges of illegal use and possession of firearm, robbery and assault. Nadine McLeod, TVJ News.
And Police Commissioner Hartley Lewin was impatient with the press today as we continue to pursue information about yesterday's crisis and the operation which ended it. Members of the media caught up with the Commissioner at a Jamaica Chamber of Commerce meeting in Kingston, which incidentally is where the Commissioner was when the incident was playing out in Montego Bay. Keneal Gale reports.
Pressed by members of the media for an update on the case against Stephen Frey and the circumstances surrounding his capture, Commissioner Lewin maintained that there weren't enough details yet to provide an update. He was a little impatient of the questions.
Look, I'm the commissioner. There's a hierarchy, there's a structure, I have investigators, and I'm not going to be breathing down their necks. They know what they have to do. Sir, investigations are painstaking. Pardon me? You're looking news, sir, and there's no news there because I have none.
However, he did point out that the violence-free resolution was a team effort. He said that though he remained at the controls in the corporate area, he was in constant contact with ground commanders and other personnel as the situation unfolded in Montego Bay. He said in assessing the incident, everything worked according to plan, but if it didn't, it would be a mistake to think that the operation failed.
And that would be a travesty for us to think that way when in fact everything might have worked just as well, but just in the actual physical, face-to-face part of it, something didn't quite go right. Then we say it failed. And that is how we tend to judge things, which is unfair.
When asked whether the Prime Minister's presence at the airport was beneficial, Commissioner Lewin said he couldn't comment on that until the entire operation was reviewed. But he said the practice isn't a strange one worldwide.
I know of other scenarios, oil spill in the open air and so on, where a political representative turns up and so on, where the ground commander has in fact found that extremely useful to his thing because media rushes to them and